We're just picking up on a really central element of US foreign policy, which is this US new Cold War against China. Unfortunately, we've got this anti-China policy, which is a bipartisan issue. Both the Democrats and Republicans are very committed to attempting to contain China through various aggressive measures, be that tariffs, sanctions, propaganda, smears, and diplomatic attacks. And at the same time, the US is also engaging in a massive military buildup in the Asia Pacific. Very recently, in September 2024, the US Congress passed 25 anti-China related bills in a week that was dubbed China Week. What is your opinion on the danger of this approach? And if you were president of the United States, would you pursue a different policy towards China?
Yes, absolutely. This approach is very counterproductive and very destructive to the US, not to mention that it endangers us. The US, now has troops in Taiwan, which are there supposedly in an advisory capacity, but that's how it always starts, or training capacity. So this is extremely dangerous in the same way that Biden-Harris now sending 100 troops to Israel, supposedly to assist with this missile defense system. That's extremely dangerous. I mean, this is how the war in Vietnam began and all that. They always start with advisors, and it's the slippery slope, which has been sliding in a very big way. So this is really dangerous. US foreign policy, in fact, kind of reoriented. This was basically a shift to the east in our foreign policy. And we've been revving up our nuclear weapons and undertaking a whole new generational replacement with more powerful weapons. This is part of the arms race, which is devastating to all of our economies. But specifically, we're making an enemy out of China. We need to compete economically with China. And tariffs don't really do that, because tariffs don't address the essential dysfunction of the US economy, an economy that has been financialized. And we need to address that financialization. Simply invoking tariffs is not going to do the trick. And the hostilities are extremely dangerous. And also, we are pushing Russia and China together, which Henry Kissinger knew was a fatal flaw. And that is now happening in a very big way. I believe China, if I'm not mistaken, has actually expressed sympathy with Russia and Iran in regard to this impending Middle East war that's on its way to going global. So this is a real danger, to be making an enemy of China. Our economies are far too interdependent, and simply invoking tariffs or punishing China economically is not going to help us. We need to strengthen the US economy, which has been systematically disabled through endless debt. We have a debt and a financialized economy right now, and that needs to be fixed in and of itself. Simply trying to strike out and crush China isn't going to work. China is an economic powerhouse, and it's not a rising military power to answer the threats that the US has been raising against it. So this is not a productive path forward, simply to make an enemy out of China. We need to work together diplomatically, and, in a nutshell, we need to move from a unipolar world, a world based on one dominant power, which we are not anymore. We are not economically the dominant power. So we need to move to a multipolar world and transition from being the bully in the schoolyard to an adult in the room, able to work together based on international law and human rights to create a world that's going to work for all of us. When one power is trying to dominate all the others, forget it. It's not working now. We have lost every military conflict, arguably since Vietnam, but certainly not any of the post-2001 wars. We're losing them catastrophically. We've spent some $22 trillion on these wars since 2001. And what do we have to show for it? Failed states and mass refugee migrations that are coming our way, and continuing so-called terrorist threats. So this doesn't solve anything. It's great for the weapons industry and the military industrial complex, who are calling the shots. But for the American people, this is a disaster. Oh, I should mention also, according to Jeffrey Sachs, who was an advisor to our campaign, the average cost to the American household is $12,000 per year for the most recent military budget. So it's staggering. And the American people don't know this. They're not aware of it. And yet, even so, the American people oppose the endless war machine. So using the bully pulpit of the office, in fact, even just participating in the election, we can begin to really stir the pot here with a reality check, which really resonates with the American people.